The end of this month is going to be Earth Day, so that naturally got me thinking, what are some of the best pieces of media that examine the environment? My two favorite ones are The Lorax and Princess Mononoke. And as I started to look at the two of them, I started wondering, what is unique about the way The Lorax represents Western environmentalism, and what is unique about the way Princess Mononoke represents Eastern environmentalism? Besides the fact that one is a woodland sprite in a children's book, and the other is an anime wolf girl, there is a lot to examine here. So let's rewind to the 60s and 70s when industry was booming, pollution was rising, and two very important icons in environmentalism would have something to say. All that being said, this is Story Route. Let's start by looking right at the Lorax. So picture this. It's post-World War II. America is on top of the world. The economy thriving. Suburbs expanding. Consumer culture is now fully locked in. We are producing cars, appliances, plastics, all of it at breakneck speed. But there's a problem, and it's a problem that nobody is paying attention to. Pollution. Yeah. By the 1960s, the air was thick with smog, rivers were catching fire, and entire species were on the brink of extinction. It was industrial progress at any cost. For a while, people ignored it, until 1962, when Rachel Carson's Silent Spring pulled the fire alarm on environmental destruction. Carson's work shed light on the dangers of pesticides like DDT, linking them to cancer, ecological destruction, and even help protect our most precious resource, bird eggs. Carson's work changed everything. With her book, the modern environmental movement was born. Within a decade, we had Earth Day, the Clean Air Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Environmental Protection Agency. Or at least we did have the Environmental Protection Agency. Enter Dr. Seuss. At this time, Seuss, aka Theodore G, wasn't just writing rhymes about green eggs and ham. He was in La Jolla, California, watching developers tear through eucalyptus groves. A trip to Kenya, where conservation efforts were in full swing, convinced him that his next book needed a message. And in 1971, the Lorax hit bookshelves. Now, if you grew up with the Lorax, you know the drill. The Onceler discovers truffle trees. He chops them down to make thneeds because, and I quote,
"Need to find something that all people need."
The Lorax warns him, but the Onceler doesn't listen. The trees begin to disappear. The animals leave, and the Onceler's business starts to crumble. Finally, when all's said and done, the Onceler realizes he messed up, but he realized it too late. At its core, the Lorax is a critique of industrial greed. The Onceler isn't necessarily evil, he's just short-sighted, much like most profit projections are. He keeps expanding, assuming there will always be more trees, more resources, more time. And that's the scary part, it mirrors real life. By the time the Lorax was published, companies like Exxon and Monsanto had already proven they were willing to sacrifice the planet for profit. Even today, you see Onceler logic everywhere. Deforestation? We'll just replant. Plastic pollution? Not my problem. But here's the thing. The Lorax frames nature as helpless.
I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues.
The trees, the animals, the environment, it's all passive, waiting for someone to save it. But what if nature wasn't silent? What if it fought back? Well, we'll get the answer to that question once we hop over the Pacific and visit our friends in Japan. Following World War II, the country was struggling. Cities were leveled, the economy was shattered, people were struggling to survive. By the 1950s, the country was rebuilding fast, embracing industry as the key to prosperity. Steel, automobiles, chemical production, it was all booming. But like America, this rapid growth came with a cost. The forested landscape that had shaped Japan's culture for centuries was shrinking. While the United States had framed nature as something separate from humanity, needing someone to stand up for it, Japan had an older, deeper perspective on the environment, one rooted in Shintoism. Shinto, Japan's indigenous belief system, teaches that kami, spirits or gods, inhabit everything in nature. Mountains, rivers, trees, even the wind. Nature isn't just there. It's alive, powerful, and deserving of respect. This belief shaped Japan's history for centuries. Sacred forests were left untouched. Rivers were worshipped as life-giving deities. Even today, you'll find Shinto shrines built around ancient trees, treated as homes of powerful spirits. And Miyazaki brought this worldview into Mononoke. At first glance, it seems like an anime version of the Lorax. A powerful natural force fights against industry. Humans exploit the land for resources. This overreach leads to chaos. But here's the twist. Miyazaki doesn't give us clear heroes or villains. Lady Eboshi isn't a greedy capitalist caricature. She runs Irontown as a refuge for outcasts, giving lepers and former prostitutes a second chance. She's tearing down the forest not for greed, but for survival. San, or the titular Princess Mononoke, hates humans. She's not some peaceful guardian of nature. She's a warrior raised by wolves to fight against the very species she happens to belong to. And then there's Ashitaka, the cursed protagonist. He's caught in the middle. He doesn't pick a side, he's just trying to find a way for both to coexist. And when things spiral out of control, nature doesn't just suffer, it retaliates. The boar gods lead a doomed charge against the humans. The forest spirit, nature itself, dies and the land immediately starts to rot. The final scenes aren't a warning, they're a prophecy. If we can't learn to live with nature, nature will try to live without us. These are things we're also seeing today. Natural disasters, increasing sea levels, ecosystems dying off. Much like the Lorax critiques corporate greed, Princess Mononoke mirrors the way nature is permanently affected by our own imbalance, regardless of our intentions. So, which story gets it right? The Lorax is clear-cut. It tells us that if we don't take responsibility for the environment, nobody will. It's a call to action. Simple, urgent, and powerful. We as humans have the ability to destroy nature, but also the power to restore it. The Onceler may have made mistakes, but in the end, he recognizes his guilt and offers a chance at redemption. Princess Mononoke, on the other hand, refuses to make it that simple. It tells us that the conflict between industry and nature isn't just about greed. It's about survival, progress, and unintended consequences. Both stories hand us outcomes without a clear villain or an easy fix. Instead, they force us to accept that nature isn't forever. Whether it's that we have completely destroyed it, or it lashes out and destroys us, both stories at their core try to get their audience to think bigger than themselves. Our actions reach wider than we intend. But they also remind us that coexistence, however difficult, is possible. So, in one corner, the Lorax says, care a whole awful lot, or nothing will get better. And in the other, Princess Mononoke says, we cannot completely preserve nature while progressing. We can only work towards balance. Both are valid. Both speak to different realities of how humans interact with nature. The Lorax is the ideal, a moral imperative to protect what we have before it's gone. And it's important to use these stories as inspiration for how we would like our society to be. With no aspirations to strive towards, we risk becoming apathetic to how futile protecting nature feels. Princess Mononoke, meanwhile, is the truth. Humans and nature will always be in tension, and that harmony requires sacrifice on both sides. A practical way of accepting the environment will never truly be safe from our intervention, but there's a line we always have to keep in mind. Today, we're still standing at the crossroads of both stories. Do you believe your generation rests in a position like Ted, inheriting a bleak landscape with the hope of rebuilding? Or do you identify as Ashitaka, navigating the gray areas and trying to find balance between progress and preservation? Maybe you're in a part of your life where you feel like San, angry and resentful at the world for irresponsibly abusing nature. Heck, maybe you feel like the Onceler, obsessed with the next stage of human progress that it almost seems unfair to you to slow down for the sake of trees and air that you can't speak to. Whoever you feel like in this stage of your life, just know there may never be a perfect solution. But one thing is certain, and I hope you keep this in mind this Earth Day, is that nature really isn't waiting for us to find out. Well, that's all I have for you today as a part of Story Route. I hope that you guys have a wonderful Earth Day, a wonderful spring and summertime coming up, and if you liked what you saw or listened to, I hope that you'll consider subscribing, leaving a comment, liking it, anything that helps us reach more people so we can share the love and wonder of stories. Feel free to leave in the comments below which part of this generational shift you feel like you're a part of, or if you disagree with anything I said, I'd love to hear more about it. But yeah, that's everything we have, and we'll look forward to unearthing the next story. Have a good one.